Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entree Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. This episode of Entree Architect Podcast is supported by our platform sponsors. ARCAT, the online resource delivering quality building material information, CAD details, BIM specifications, and more, all for free. And Studio Services Bookkeeping, a division of Charette Venture Group, providing concierge remote bookkeeping services for small firm architects. Emily Hall, Xylia Buros, and Lisa Saldivar, welcome to Entree Architect Podcast.
Mark, Hi, Mark. Thank you.
It's great to have the three of you here. Today, we have friends joining us on the show, people who have supported EntreArchitect for years, allies in the industry with a parallel mission of supporting and growing small firm architects just like us. Emily Hall, Xylia, Buros, and Lisa Saldivar are experts in branding, and more specifically, branding small firms. Emily Hall leads CVG's Charette Venture Group's marketing program with a joint focus on attracting new clients and managing the broader marketing team that serves CVG's investment partners. She brings over 19 years of architectural marketing experience to CVG with a focus on discovering a firm's authentic personality and using it to drive strategy. And before I jump into the intros of Xylia and Lisa, we also have to talk about CVG a little bit at the end on what you do and why you do it and how you do it, because I want people to understand what CVG is. You guys are doing a great job. We're allies in this world of architecture, and I want to make sure that people understand what you do, because it's a very unique thing that you're doing over there. So Xylia Buros directs the marketing programs of all CVG investment partner firms. As a marketing and communications strategist with more than 18 years of experience, she previously ran her own consulting business that helped innovative firms increase their revenue and visibility. She also serves as marketing manager served as marketing manager at two prominent architecture firms in Portland, Oregon, and as programs director at the Portland chapter of the American Institute of Architects. Xylia graduated with a BA in English Literature from New York University, and she is in location independent, which you've been on the show before, Xylia, talking about that you move around the world a whole bunch of times. I'm not sure where you are now, but if anybody's interested in location independence, sort of not having a home base for very long and then moving on and traveling throughout the world while you do what you do, go check out that episode. We'll have a link to that episode on the show notes. It's a great story. And Lisa Saldivar directs branding, website, and graphic design activities over at Charette and the investment partners, bringing over 10 years of experience in designing for the online and print landscapes. She has been involved in many aspects of creating powerful design brands within the architecture industry, including EntreArchitect. Fun fact, Lisa designed the EntreArchitect website when we were partners back in 2015. EntreArchitect was Charette Venture Group's first investment, which I always love to mention. And so Lisa and I worked extensively together on developing what's there now at EntreArchitect.com. And she works with all of the partners over there as they come in. Before we get too deep into this episode, let's say thank you to our platform sponsors, ARCAT and Studio Services Bookkeeping. I'm hearing it more and more among the EntreArchitect community. Your workload is piling up. With project conditions changing and limited time to get things done, it's good to have information right there at your fingertips. ARCAT.com provides architects, engineers, spec writers, and contractors with the most comprehensive libraries of building product content. And it's designed so you can access it quickly and efficiently. Even better, ARCAT.com is free. It's free to use and requires no registration. So visit today at arcat.com and access the information you need now. That's arcat.com, ARCAT.com. Studio Services Bookkeeping, a division of Charette Venture Group, provides concierge remote bookkeeping services to small firm architects. Liberate yourself from bookkeeping tasks by outsourcing to trusted professionals who understand the nuances of your industry and your firm size. You can maintain control of your finances without doing all bookkeeping tasks yourself. Studio Services Bookkeeping goes beyond traditional bookkeeping to help you manage cash flow, analyze project profitability, handle invoicing, and streamline your financial systems. Learn how to start outsourcing your bookkeeping today at ss-bookkeeping.com/EntreArchitect. That's ss-bookkeeping.com/EntreArchitect. And mention EntreArchitect to get 5 hours of free bookkeeping with a 6-month contract. That's ss-bookkeeping.com/EntreArchitect. Please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. Before we jump into the topic, let's talk a little bit about Charette. Just really briefly, maybe one of you can just talk about what Charette does and how you help small firm architects.
Sure. I can lead off on that, Mark.
Great.
It's our mission to help small architecture firms be better businesses. And we do that by kind of morphing around firms and offering all kinds of business services, both in strategy and execution, around finance, operations, leadership, marketing, business development, ownership transition, basically everything that isn't architecture per se, that's a business service, we can help with. And we're typically known for our investment partnership model, as you know, Mark, as you were in the program too. And that's a longer term kind of holistic approach where we work with firms for a period of several years. And that's a shared risk model. So we provide all of those services, whichever services a firm might need. And we do that at a percentage of revenue basis. However, we also offer our services on an a la carte basis, which a lot of people don't know. So if you do have any kind of any questions about running your practice in general, I mean, we could help with ownership transition. Our team, who's here today, works with marketing and business development, rebranding, new website, marketing strategy, social media, digital content. We can help with all of that. And we have free business coaching sessions all the time. People can message me to set that up. It's emily@charettvg.com. You'll have the link, I'm sure, in your notes.
Yep.
And we just love to learn about different small firms and how they're running their practices. And we talk to business leaders all the time and just try and offer some perspective.
Great. It's a great company, great people. And so definitely go check out Charette, what Charette's doing generally at charettvg.com, and reach out to Emily and the crew over there. All right, we're here to talk about branding today because we have the branding experts here from Charette to talk about what branding is and why it's important. And we're going to talk about 10 lessons that they've learned through rebranding all of these architects, these investment partners and others on creating new brands for architecture firms. And we're talking about 10 lessons that they've learned. So before we do that, Xylia, could you maybe talk about what branding is so we can sort of have a foundation on what we're talking about and why it's important for architects specifically?
Sure, thank you. So we consider a brand being ultimately who your clients think you are. So it's everything from your mission statement, what you do and why you do it, all of your messaging and your visual identity. So we consider it very holistically. Some people think of a brand as being just a logo or something like that, but it's actually, your logo is one small part of the visual identity. And then we also include all messaging, including your mission statement, your about statement, your bios. So it's really a holistic view. A brand is ultimately who your clients think you are. And it's all these factors, tangible and intangible, that encompasses your brand.
Yeah.
We think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We just think that if you are only focusing on one part of this, it can be a little weak. So we really try to make sure the messaging and the visual identity are coherent and that we work together. So Emily and I work on messaging and we work alongside Lisa, who works mostly on the visual identity.
Yeah,
You can't miss one.
Yeah, it's super important that it's holistic, that it's all inclusive, because it is about what people think about you. Jeff Eccles, our brand strategy guy over at EntreArchitect, he always likes to use the quote from Jeff Bezos: your brand are what people say about you when you're not in the room. Mm-hmm. That's your brand, right? It's about your logo. It's about your office. It's about your marketing materials. It's about the architecture you do. It's about the way the contractor talks to you and says what they say about you. It's all of it, right? And it does include the brand or the logo and all the visual aspects to it as well. But it's all of it, right? It's the story that people say when they say, "Oh, this is your architecture firm. This is what I know about you." And so it's important to look at every aspect of it. And we're going to go through 10 lessons What's the first lesson? Who's going to talk about the first lesson here on branding?
I will. It's Emily. So number one, make sure you're rebranding for the right reasons. And I like to lead off with some of the wrong reasons, which are kind of interesting. Don't use a rebrand as a substitution for business development activities. I mean, if you recognize your brand, or you think your brand is not working well, make sure you're looking at every other activity you're doing in marketing and business development to see if it's working. Because often designers love to throw design at a problem and design their way out of a problem, when actually maybe you just need to pick up the phone and schedule some meetings and meet people one-on-one and get your business development program improved and functioning successfully. The same thing with a marketing program. You know, if you're struggling with brand awareness and you think people don't know who you are, don't recognize you in the marketplace, that certainly is a reason to rebrand, but make sure that you are doing everything else in your marketing activities to get your name out there. Because if you don't have a consistent marketing program, it doesn't matter how strong your brand is. You know, you're not doing the other activities necessary to promote it.
So is it important to get those other things done right first and then rebrand, or is it just don't expect that rebranding is going to fix all those other problems?
Don't expect that it's going to fix all those other problems. Certainly, if you're a startup, you have to have, you start with the branding and then, build these programs alongside that. But just be aware. I think that's the importance, is just be aware of, and really realistically looking at your strengths and weaknesses in business development and marketing, because your branding is an effort. It really needs to be done well, and we'll talk about that in some other points today. But you don't want to rebrand often, and you want to make sure you have all of your other activities working at full capacity.
Right. Okay. Great. I think that's super important, because I think a lot of architects, like you mentioned, we're creative, right? And we think, okay, well, maybe if I redesign the website and get a new brand and a new logo and all of the things that come along with branding, that it'll fix all my problems. That'll bring in new work and it'll attract the clients that I want, and they'll sign the contracts. But there's a whole bunch of other pieces to it, right? There's marketing is different than branding, and sales is different than branding, and financial management is different than branding, and so you have to get all those other pieces right as well. Yeah.
And sometimes you see firms that rebrand as a morale boost, and that's an internal problem. Like that's, you might be looking at your operations if that's the case. So you just want to make sure that's just another one of the quote unquote potentially wrong reasons to rebrand. That would be more of an internal reason, which the brand isn't 100% guaranteed to fix any internal problems that you're having within.
The brand's not going to fix your poor culture.
No, it's not. You can gloss over it, but it's certainly not going to fix it.
Yeah.
So some of the right reasons, we can talk about some of the right reasons to consider rebranding if we want to move forward there. So just be aware if your brand isn't serving you, and it might not be serving you for many reasons. Potentially, you might have a leadership transition or new principals coming into the leadership team. You might have a name-based firm that you're choosing to, a proper name-based firm that you're choosing to rebrand to a different name. Maybe your brand doesn't fit your overall growth strategy, so you want to move into new markets or new geography, but your existing brand is tied to an old way of doing things, and it doesn't relate to your new interests. Maybe it's an outdated or non-memorable identity. Often we see an identity that's not done intentionally in the first place, and there's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes when a firm principal goes off on their own, they might hang a shingle and really quickly put their name up and do a very simple brand just to get the business up and running. But a few years later, the brand isn't serving them anymore. Maybe they grow their staff, they change their direction, and they realize that the brand needs to be a little bit more intentional. So that's another reason. We've worked with a firm who had confusion in the marketplace. There was another firm that had a similar name. That might be a reason to rebrand. There might be a major life change, like a divorce and a changing of your name. And it might be a combination of all of the above. But there are plenty of good reasons to rebrand.
Yeah, I think that lack of an intentional focus, of an intentional brand, is probably pretty common with architects.
Mm-hmm.
That many of us, when we just start. Especially with firms that start like now, when the economies are bad, maybe you lost your job or you're making this decision based on other reasons, and you just jump in and you just start working because that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that brand becomes established unintentionally, right? We had mentioned earlier that you have a brand whether it's intentional or not. It's already there. But people talk about you. And so even if you didn't intentionally put it out there, there's already a brand out there.
Mm-hmm.
And often it's put there by, TV shows on HGTV, right? Of what architects do and what architects are. And that's another piece of why branding is important. We need to tell our own story as architects, as a profession. Mm-hmm. And each individual architect has the responsibility of doing that themselves to sort of fill in the gaps of what HGTV is teaching people about what architects do.
Yeah. And often firms evolve. Firms might be very different. I'm sure a lot of your listeners who started their own firms really can recognize how different their firm is 5 or 10 years down the line from when they first hung their shingles, so to speak. And the brand needs to respond to that and reflect that and reflect where the vision for the future of the firm as well, and not just look to the past.
Yeah. So does that cover us for number 1, rebrand for the right reasons?
It does. And I'll go to number 2, which is understand the problem you're trying to solve, right? As designers, we're very aware of solving problems and look at your brand the same way. Understand what problem needs to be solved and why. Again, is this truly a branding problem? Do you need a full rebrand? Do you just need a freshening up of your existing brand? Or maybe you just need messaging work. Maybe your value proposition isn't clearly defined and we need to improve that. And the brand doesn't need changing. It just needs better support through messaging. And to understand how you want to be positioned through branding work, you really need to understand how you're currently positioned as well. And we're working with a firm now on a rebrand, and I spent quite a bit of time interviewing their key clients to really better understand their perception in the marketplace, and most importantly, their value proposition, and make sure that what they were telling me was in alignment with what their clients were telling me. And that was a really interesting exercise. We like to do that. If it's appropriate, we like to do that for our clients, because it really helps understand positioning and where you stand in the marketplace and anything you need to change. In this case, they didn't need to change anything, but it helps better understand the problem. And we like to develop a creative brief to frame the problem. We'll talk a little bit more about the creative brief throughout this podcast, but the creative brief really defines and frames what the branding work needs to achieve. What's the mission, vision, value proposition? What's the competitive environment? What's the desired positioning versus the current positioning? And it also gets into aesthetic preferences, et cetera, et cetera. It can cover a lot, but it should be short and sweet and concise. And if you have multiple partners, it's really important that all the partners kind of sign off on the brief so that the problem is framed correctly in a way that the designers and design team that's helping with the branding work can respond to.
So with a creative brief, do you want to, when you have multiple partners, you have one creative brief that everybody agrees on, not one creative brief from each partner, and then and then we'll figure out how to come together with the three? No,
definitely not. And I think a third party is really valuable to help to really interview everybody involved. We interview staff members as well, and we pull all that information together. We figure out where there are potential disjoints and try and clarify those and get to the bottom of it. So in the end, we have a document that's guiding a guiding document that helps the designer better understand the problem to solve, and also make sure that everybody is starting from being on the same page. And I know Xylia can speak to this because she works a lot with mission, vision, and value proposition work. And when you have multiple partners, it's interesting to have them work independently on their mission statements or what they feel their brand values are, and see what the commonalities are. And Xylia, maybe you want to speak to that a little bit too, about your experience with that mission work in the creative brief process.
Sure. Yeah, like Emily said, there needs to be some kind of consensus. And I actually have found that the mission creation process with multiple stakeholders and owners can be really valuable for them to get on the same page and to reassess why they started the business or became partners in the first place. So it can be a really powerful exercise, not just so you have a refreshed, about statement on your website, but really internally, it can help reinforce, why they got into the business in the first place and why they work together.
I think vision and mission are so important. They are absolutely a requirement, whether you're rebranding or not. It should be one of the first things we do when we're starting a new firm. But even if you're not starting a new firm, if you don't have a very specific mission statement and a vision statement, so if you don't know what your big idea is and why you're pursuing that big idea, you need to do that right now. You need to do that first, because that guides every single other thing that you do. And so that's critical to branding, but it's critical to successful business as well.
Absolutely.
So number one was rebrand for the right reasons. Number two was understand the problems you're trying to solve. So make sure that you understand why you're doing a rebrand. So what's number three?
Number three is one of my personal favorites. It is know your target audience. Hint, it's not other architects.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem in our profession. I think a lot of architects are talking to other architects. Right, their websites are portfolios that want to impress the other architects out there, rather than, generate new work and new clients and bring in the work that you're looking for.
Exactly.
So how do we do that? How do we know who our target audience is?
Yes, great question. So we want to make sure your brand is appealing, attractive, and compelling to your target audience. So that includes the visual identity and the messaging, of course. So one thing to think about is, the first thing we recommend is coming up with kind of your target client avatar, so to speak. So, you can create a sample persona, or you can think about one of your favorite clients that actually exists. One of our firms did this recently. They had a client they really, really loved in the New York City area. And we just basically kind of fleshed out a persona of that client to serve as the avatar, the baseline for who they wanted to target in the future. Because if they could, they would just keep designing houses for this one person.
Right.
That's not how it works though, right? So that's a great way to start, is just sitting down, if it's just you or if there are multiple partners, sitting down with the leaders of the firm and really trying to figure out, and it could be everything. It could be, age, geographic location, what kind of job they have, why they're building a new house, or, if it's a commercial client, what their main goal is. Is it hitting the budget, or is it, meeting some other kind of metric? So really, as detailed as possible is not a bad idea. And then with your target client avatar, looking at your messaging and making sure that your mission, your vision, your project descriptions, etc. It sounds like you're speaking directly to your target client and not to other architects.
Right. You want to resonate with that ideal client, that client that you want to attract, the client that you want to work with, right? Mm-hmm. When they come to your website and they see what you have on your website and they're reading the words that are on your website, you want to make an emotional connection with them. You want to make sure that resonates with them, that they feel like, oh, we're home. This is the architect that we're looking for. And going through that process of identifying who your target market is, who your ideal client is, by going through your list of past clients, right? Mm. And identifying those clients that not only you enjoyed working with, but they paid you on time and they paid you what you were worth, and they didn't push back when you sent them an invoice. And when there was a problem, that they understood that this was part of the process and they were reasonable in resolving those problems. Who is that client, right? And imagine if every client was like that client, right? That's your goal, right? With redesigning or rebranding, your goal is to attract more of those clients. So your entire project list is full of ideal clients, and that's all you're working with. And you can do that through branding. Mm-hmm. So that's super important. Number 3, know your target audience. Go through that process of understanding who they are and why they are your target audience, and make sure they are actually your ideal client, right? Because there may be a client that you really wish you had. I really wish I had a whole list of those clients, but maybe they're not really ideal for your business or for you as an architect. So you have to go through that process. All right. So that's number 3. Anything else on number 3, on knowing your target audience?
Just a quick note, actually. Yeah. One more thing you can do is once you start working with either a graphic designer or an agency or a copywriter, you can run, if you have some brand identity options or some messaging options, you can actually run those by, let's say you have a favorite client who's become a friend.
Yeah.
Or someone on your team who is also really good at messaging or really good at graphic design, just to review it, and just to kind of share their ideas. So if you are close to someone who happens to be, like your target audience, it can be really useful to get an outside opinion.
Yeah, great suggestion. All right, number 4. What's number 4?
Yes, number 4 is making sure that you can commit the time, energy, and cost that a proper rebrand will require. So kind of going off what Emily said, rebranding for the right reasons is really important, but you also want to make sure you're rebranding at the right time, meaning it's a time in the year, a time in your cycle where you have, you're not all completely working 200% on projects. There is some staff time that can be dedicated to gathering all of the content you're going to need, taking the time to work closely with the graphic designer and the messaging team. So even if you hire a group of highly competent professionals, it will require work from the team, from the staff. So making sure, it's the right time, you have the energy, and you have a proper budget to do it right. Because we think the brand is so important, it's not really something that you want to, just phone in.
Right.
You really have to be dedicated to the process, and it's quite the process.
So is there so if somebody comes to Charette and they want to rebrand and is there a process? How do they establish a brand, right? Or a budget, if I have no idea what it costs, and I'm not going to ask you that now, but how do you go through that process of understanding how much it costs, how much they should have in the budget in order to do this right? How do they do that? Is that through an interview?
Yeah, definitely. There would be a discovery phase where we really we're trying to frame the problem. We're trying to better understand the problem that needs to be solved. And certainly if somebody came to us and said they thought they needed a rebrand, and we discovered that maybe that wasn't the right solution, we would share that, we really would. And sometimes firms need new names, and that we do renaming as well. And that is another layer of the process. And there are different, there are different scopes that obviously we can propose, and that's why the pricing can vary. And that's why we don't, like to give a flat price, because every firm needs something different. But just start with the conversation, and that's at the very least, we could start with a creative brief and begin to frame the problem and understand it better. And we've done creative briefs where we've done a creative brief and handed it off because they had a team that they wanted to work with, but they needed somebody who understood the industry a little bit better. And that's where we come in, is having a great understanding about branding in this industry.
Right.
So then if they had a different designer they wanted to use, they could certainly use our team, but if they wanted to use a different one, we could say, okay, here's the problem as it is, we believe, correctly framed and understood, and then hand that over.
And what about time? How long does it typically, let's say I need you've gone through this process and I know we're going to do a full rebranding, new name, new everything. or I'm launching a new firm and I want to do this right. How much time do you think it'll take?
I'm going to let Lisa answer that because I know the answer, but I want
that depends on the architect, right?
It varies. It varies a lot. I think it depends, following a lot of the steps that we're talking about here. Sometimes the approval process is held up a lot by the client. Or sometimes, it's like we have a strict schedule we work with, and I would say if everything goes really smoothly from the time that we have a new name to the time that we launch the logo and the website, about 3 months is pretty realistic. But it does vary. We've worked with partners up to a year on just really kind of making sure that everybody was happy with what they were getting.
I'm sure when there are lots of people involved and lots of decision makers, and they have to all agree on a very big decision, right? What are we going to name our baby that we're creating here? It is probably a really difficult process when you have multiple people involved.
Yeah, I think we've definitely developed these top 10 takeaways from our experience and from what worked best and what helped that process move along smoothly.
Yeah, well earned. All right, so number 5. Who's got number 5?
I can.
All right, it's prioritize quality over quantity.
Yep, prioritize quality over quantity. And this is especially true when you're deciding on what to share on your website or in collateral. I feel like Xylia and I work with clients all the time where we're, they want to showcase 100 different projects or every project they've ever done since, they graduated. And it's really important to remember, and going back to one of Xylia's earlier points about your target audience, you kind of want to place that same filter on what it is that you're sharing on your website. So again, you're kind of, the other part of quality over quantity is what projects do you have quality information on? So do you have nice photography? Do you have nice descriptions and specifications? Because people don't really want, to spend a lot of time just flipping through half-done projects. And then this also applies to your messaging. So there are lots of studies and statistics on how much word counts or kind of like the amount of text that people actually have the attention span for in 2020. And it's important to keep that in mind because a lot of times our clients want to give really lengthy, long stories about their projects, but you actually have a better chance of people stopping and reading if you have a more succinct and concise description. And that goes across all platforms. So.
And going back to one of the earlier subjects about target market, we have to remember why we're doing this, right? Who this brand is for. This brand is to attract the clients that you want for you to hire, right? You want to convert them into clients. And how often do architects have websites that are, again, knowing who your target audience is, designed for other architects rather than your ideal client? Full of really beautiful photography, no call to action, no reference to what will resonate with an ideal client, but it's really impressive to other architects. How important is that they focus on designing and selecting what will be in the website and what won't be in the website and the brand in general in terms of quality over quantity?
Yep. Wait, was that a question? Sorry.
I don't know if there was a question mark on the end.
Okay. No, I agree completely. I think that, Xylia is always saying that your website is not an archival tool for everything that you've ever done. It's a sales tool, and right. It's, the call to actions are incredibly important, and we work with clients all the time. I think that the most recent statistic is 2 clicks and under. Somebody should be able to get in touch with somebody or kind of complete their call to action. And so we definitely try to incorporate that throughout the sites wherever and whenever we can.
Yeah. All right.
I have one point I want to add to that
Go
if
ahead,
I
Emily.
could.
Yep.
And that's that recruiting is also another, talent recruitment can also be your desired audience in conjunction with finding new clients. So always remember to showcase your staff, especially with small firms. It's great to be a little bit, to really show who your staff members are, so that potential new recruits and employees can understand your firm culture a little bit better. So that's just another aspect of branding that's important to consider.
Yeah, great point. All right, number 6. What's number 6?
Err on the side of simplicity.
Right.
So this is, again, not having an overly complicated brand identity that competes with your photos, which really should be kind of like the trophy, the showcase of the site. So yeah, there's a lot of different like aesthetic tricks. Like you don't want to have a ton of color because again, you want the photos to be nice and clean on a background. You want to keep the graphic elements to a minimum. And that goes for architecture firms, but that also just goes for the kind of digital landscape that we're living in 2020. Meaning that a lot of us are looking at sites on our phone. I think that like the majority of sites are actually visited via phone or tablet these days. So if you have a ton of things going on or you're trying to communicate a bunch of different things graphically, it just ends up getting lost. And then another point to keep in mind here is kind of like your social media and how your brand identity is translated to really, I mean, we're talking about half of an inch of a space, and how can we kind of keep a consistent messaging and keep a consistent visual language in all of these different viewpoints.
Yeah. So simplicity over complexity.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number 7.
Sure. Recognize complicated interpersonal dynamics between partners and make.
Oh boy, I'm sure this is a big one.
Yeah, it is. We can't not say this. So make decision-making objective through a creative brief. And that's the helpful part, is that we can try and make decision-making a little bit more objective. So I think anybody who's been through branding work has experienced this. Rebranding can bring out partnership conflicts and alliances, and that's fine. It's completely natural because branding feels much more personal than a basic architectural design collaboration. It's really a brand is often just a firm's baby. Many partners, if you have multiple partners, they have different relationships kind of to the brand, especially if the old brand is one of the founding partners' names and you're losing that or adding a name. This is it's very personal and introspective work. And that's why I keep emphasizing the need for a creative brief, because it really helps to, if you're struggling with some questions, to really refer back to the brief and say, this really helps. Let's say you get into the conversation about, well, I like blue, but Bill doesn't like blue, but Susan prefers red. It's not as much about personal preference as it is about what is blue the right color to represent the brand and
right.
the intention around the rebrand. Lisa can speak to this, that colors just have many different associations beyond what we like or don't like as individuals, and designers are making those sophisticated choices based on the intention, the branding intention. So that's important to recognize, and it just helps to also define your milestones. When we're just getting back and talking about process a little bit, as you're moving along, and I'm speaking about potentially a firm with multiple partners trying to come to consensus at different phases, really understand what milestones would be difficult to reverse. And the same goes for the architecture process. When a phase is complete, it's really hard to redesign, or it just is much more labor intensive to reverse some design decisions at different phases. And just be aware of that, and be aware as partners that there are times you just need to sign off on a specific phase.
Yeah, as somebody who, as I get older, my priorities become more focused. One of the things that I've learned through time is that the process is not as important as the result. Right? That if you have a goal, and this goal is to achieve something. Let's say we want to have a brand that works, right? How we get there is less important than whether that brand works. Right. So, and as architects and as designers, we always have a very specific opinion. And very often that opinion, I don't want to, diverge from that opinion. If I like red, I want red, but red's not going to get me my goal. You need to open up your control over the process, let the experts guide you through that process, with the result being the ultimate prize. That when that result works and you have the clients that you want and you're designing the architecture you want, it doesn't matter whether it's red or blue or green or purple or any of the other pieces that come along with the branding process. The name is not as important as the result of what that name brings you. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, it's your identity, it's the name of your business, but it's not that important. What's important is how you're serving the world. And if that name and that brand will help you better serve the world, then that's your ultimate goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to ask Lisa to talk a little bit about color palettes, just because we started talking about red and blue, and she's great at selecting and proposing color palettes. Do you have anything that you'd like to talk about around that, about how you come up with that?
Yeah, I think that I think it's best for architects to have one major color that they're working with. And again, that kind of goes back to the original point of not having it compete too much with the design. But one of my favorite tricks on choosing colors for clients is actually just looking and studying their work. What kind of materials do they use? We have one client. One of my favorite color palettes, actually, I actually just grabbed the color from their work, and it was like this beautiful deep brick color. And it was just really not a color that they would have ever been drawn to or even noticed. I think they were very much in the we want blues. They kind of had some more like, just kind of basic blue colors. And then they ended up really loving it. And the other issue that we were having with them is that they had a lot of competitors that were using kind of a lot of the colors we were looking at initially. So with this brick color that again was pulled directly from their work, they stood out from all of their competitors, and it worked out really well for them.
Yeah, I love that idea. I could imagine them seeing red and saying, "Wow, I love that color," but not know why. Well, it's because you specified it on the last 5 projects. Actually, you clearly like that color.
And it wasn't even a color that they chose. It's a material that they used that would rust. So it was more of like a rust color. Right. So yeah, it wasn't even something they were specifically drawn or choosing. It was just something they were drawn to. The materials.
Yeah, very, very interesting. All right, so we are through number 7. What is number 8? What's the number 8 lesson?
That is designate an internal rebrand champion to keep the process moving.
I'm sure that's an important one when there's multiple people involved.
Absolutely. And it could be an administrator in your firm, but the person, whoever you choose, needs to be really empowered to crack the whip when necessary. Because often when you're dealing with multiple decision makers and you get hit a stalling point, it's only human nature to just, maybe stall a little bit or not want to make a decision right away, kick the can down the road. And the process as a result grinds to a halt. And it's really helpful to have somebody who's kind of on the more neutral realm say, nope, we got to make this decision. We've got to schedule the next meeting, because momentum really needs to continue for everyone's sake. These processes can go on and on, and then people start getting a little bit, less excited about it, and it just really needs to get done. Like any design project, needs to get done. And so if you choose this champion, their responsibility should be, setting deadlines and meeting times and making sure everybody does their homework, everybody's reviewed the materials they said they would, everybody's bringing what they're responsible for to the table. and ensuring a productive meeting environment, making sure that a conference room is set up with video, in 2021, it'll look different than last year, but, making sure everybody's in the same virtual room or room that they need to be to make a decision, that the right people are in attendance, to really enforce meeting attendance, and letting people know that if they voluntarily, miss a meeting, that they need to be responsible for arranging their feedback kind of in advance, and they still need to be in the loop. And how are we going to do that? And then also, this person's a liaison between the graphic designer and the firm leaders. So making sure, again, I think it was Xylia that in one of her points talking about all of the items that the firm is responsible for, that the graphic designer doesn't know about, right? These are the project photography, which projects to use, the bios, these kinds of things. Somebody needs to be fielding these resources back and forth and making sure they get done. And that's where a kind of brand champion is helpful, a rebrand champion, and gathering and delivering assets.
Does that have to be somebody within the firm, or can that be somebody that the firm outsources that role to?
I like it to be somebody in the firm, because you really need to know the server. The idea is that this isn't the highest and best use of principal's time,
right,
to be sorting through and grabbing every photo and doing some of the more administrative side of this project. And that if it's somebody in the firm who knows where these things are readily, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
I can't go into your server and know what projects you want, and know all the information about what year they were created, and what project manager was on that,
right,
that particular project. That, and ideally your rebrand champion knows that too.
And it's somebody who is committed to the process, somebody who has some buy-in as well.
Yeah, and it's just to reinforce, this person should be empowered to.
That's very important, right?
Yeah. It shouldn't be somebody who just potentially an administrator who joined the firm a week ago. Although that person might be empowered, but somebody really needs to be able to push back on the principals and make sure they're getting what they need to.
Yeah, they have to have the authority to make those decisions. They're not making final decisions for the brand or the process, but they're making decisions on timelines and getting people to do what they're supposed to do. And if they don't have any authority or power, that's not going to work very well.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're up to number 9. Number 9.
Yeah, number 9 is really just an extension of number 8, which is to manage that feedback constructively. So whoever that point person is, just making sure, as architects, I feel like architects get when a client comes to the table and has feedback, but it's not necessarily constructive, or it doesn't necessarily move the process along. So again, this one is really just to kind of, how can we make this process as smooth as possible? And, having that point person come to the table and bring feedback. Visual examples always help, clear communication, what they do or do not like about the design direction, just helps move the process along.
All right. So we are through 9. So let me just recap the 9, and then we'll wrap things up with number 10. Number 1 is rebrand for the right reasons. Number 2 is understand the problem you're trying to solve. Number 3 is know your target audience. Number 4, commit to the time, energy, and cost that a proper rebrand will require. Number 5 is prioritize quality over quantity. Number 6 is err on the side of simplicity. Number 7, recognize complicated interpersonal dynamics between partners. Number 8, designate an internal brand champion to keep the process moving. And number 9, deliver feedback constructively. What is number 10 of your 10 lessons?
Number 10 is to trust the experts. That's what we're here for. And like I mentioned before, we pulled these kind of top 10 processes in order to make to take advantage of of what we've learned so far in rebranding the many architects that we have. It's also really important to have fun during the process, and know that once your identity is out in the world, it's up to you to build on it, maintain it, and amplify it.
I think that number 10 is probably the most important piece, is trust the experts, because I think architects, they are often in the position of being the expert. And so it's difficult to hand that expertise off to somebody else, especially in a creative process like rebranding. They want control over it. They think they know how to do this because they're designers, because they're creative, because they are architects and artists. But you're not a marketing expert. You're not a branding expert. Yes, you could create a brand. You can go through the process and become a great design and create a great brand. But when you hire an expert team to do it, let them do it. Get out of their way and let them do it. And think about what I said before. Think about the result, right? Commit to that creative brief. Commit to that end goal. This is where we want to go. This is the reasons we're doing this. And then let them do it. Be there to answer the questions. Be there to make the decisions. But don't try to lead the process. Let the experts lead the process, and you'll end up in a much better place. And most likely, much like your architecture projects often end up somewhere very different than your client thought they would, but they're very happy in the place that they end up. You too may end up in a place very different if you let them, in a very different place than you thought you would, because you let the process play out. And so definitely trust the experts. Anything else that any of the three of you would like to talk about that last one or any of the others before we wrap things up? No? All good. All right. So their names, Emily Hall, Xylia Buros, and Lisa Saldivar. They are the team from Charette Venture Group. You can learn all about Charette Venture Group at charettevg.com. Charette Venture Group is at charettevg.com. We will have a link to that on the show notes. There's an article that lists all 10 of these lessons and a video on the website at charettevg.com. Just click the free learning section at the very top, and you can go right to it. It's in there. There's all kinds of great resources over there, so I recommend that you go check out the free learning section over at charettevg.com. Emily, Xylia, and Lisa, thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for what you're doing for the profession. That each time you help an architect become more successful, you're helping to reinforce and strengthen the profession at large. And as an architect, I thank you for the work that you're doing individually with your investment partners and the people that you're working with, but also by helping to strengthen I know the mission of Charette Venture Group. I know what Matt intended when he started Charette Venture Group. And the work that the three of you are doing is a critical piece of that mission. So I thank you for what you're doing for Charette, but also at a much larger level, thank you for what you do for the profession.
Oh, thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
If you liked this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a rating, write a review, and share a link to this episode with a friend. Links to all the resources we discussed today are available at the show notes for this episode found at entrearchitect.com/podcast. And thank you to arcat.com and Studio Services Bookkeeping for their support of this episode. Entre Architect is proud to be a partner with the largest, most engaged AEC multimedia network on the planet, Gable Media. We are curating thought leadership for an audience dedicated to building a better world. Listen and subscribe to all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABL media.com. And check out Entre Architect Academy membership. Ready to edit business resources for small firm architects, live monthly training, a supportive architect community, and Simple Systems, our new business system program developed for you, small firm entrepreneur architects. It's all waiting for you at Entre Architect Academy membership. Come join me and hundreds of your Entre Architect peers. Visit entrearchitect.com/join to enroll. entrearchitect.com/join. Be well, my friends. Be healthy, happy, safe, and secure. Thank you for listening. Love, learn, and share what you know.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of Entre Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.